what I do is a lot more than just chiropractic. My goal is to help the quality of people's lives in any fashion way in the name of healing and maintenance. A woman that was buying flowers for Valentine's Day, and everybody's buying these beautiful arrangements of roses, and this woman comes in, she goes, I don't want the rose petals, I just want the stems with the thorns. And the woman said, why would you want to do that? She said, because those thorns represent to me the times I've had difficulty with my spouse and that we've overcome. And those are the things that really made us closer together and made us who we are. So that's sort of, just think of the things I'm going to share with you as my thorns that I've gone through. This is sort of my story, and you can enjoy it and laugh at it because I laugh at it all the time. But it's funny that, you know, when we got to where we are now, it's the things that we got over, not the successes that we remember that made us who we are. And any of you that come to me probably know that we go way beyond working with the nervous system. So that being said, let me go start my story way back to, I graduated Life Chiropractic College in Georgia in 1981, and my first job was with my former camp counselor, and we'll just call him Dr. S. And as I got out of school, he had an opening for an associate, so I was all excited to fill into this spot. And what happened was that I didn't get my license test till January, and I got out in September. So in the interim, he hired somebody else. Being one of the largest practices in the country, and he was a consultant, he hooked me up with a guy in Lakewood who we'll call Dr. R. Well, Dr. R took me in, was all excited, and I was this passionate, dynamic guy that I just want to get my hands on patients and get started and do what I do. So I got my license. I start with Dr. R in Lakewood, and we doubled his practice in 3 months. So the guy's making a ton of money, turns out to be a total wacko, and he's making so much money, and he's getting crazy with himself. His wife is pregnant with her second daughter, and he wanted a boy. He put a gun up to his wife's head, came in that afternoon and fired me. And after I thought things were doing pretty well. So I said road trip. I went back to Georgia only to find out when I got there that my fiance was engaged to another guy. So life was a little rough. I came back, and that's where I began to believe, and that's the key message in this, is to believe that I was meant to do what I do. But my phone started to ring off the hook. It was all my patients from Lakewood. I was living in a small one-bedroom studio apartment in Pine Beach behind the Hess station. And now that I didn't have a fiance, I started dating. And my patients started calling. I said, well, come over, I'll adjust you. Next thing you know, within 2 weeks, I was seeing 50 to 75 people a week on this side back road. And the men really enjoyed it because they'd come in, sit on the couch, and I'd have a girlfriend from the night before walk out while I'm adjusting, and all I lived with was my golden retriever, and he'd lick everybody's face underneath the table, and then at some point, this girl would walk out in clad lingerie, and all the men wanted to come first thing in the morning. I didn't understand why. So at that point, though, I was still a little bit, didn't know what I was going to do. I was kind of lost. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay here, and you know, I'm so flattered and humbled, and I love my patients, and I love what I do. So I went for a loan, and I don't mind mentioning these two guys' names, but a guy named Mr. Sutton from a bank, First Tom's River. I sat in front of him. I was all cleaned up and ready to get a loan. He stood there before he even looked at my resume or my proposal. He said, "You'll never make it in Tom's River. You will never be successful. There's no room for chiropractors. What you guys do are quacks, and you should just, go home and pick another profession." I was a little dejected at that point, and I couldn't get a loan because my whole family lived in Florida at this point. They had moved down there, so I didn't have a co-signer. Called a couple patients, and at this point now I realized I wouldn't co-sign for somebody like myself at that point. So no money, no fiance. No practice, but I said, you know what, I'm going to still believe. I'm going to keep the faith. I'm going to keep my belief because I know somehow it's going to be provided for because I know this is my destiny. Well, that next day I get something in the mail. It's a little pink letter that I got to pick up something at the post office, and it's a letter from my grandmother, and she left me some stocks and bonds for about $22,000. So I'm saying, oh, new attitude. So, young doctor, what do I want to do? I'm going to join clubs like this, right? I joined the Rotary. And you get to give a little craft talk your first time there. And I go, and I'm late with patients. I go in, and I'm the last one there. They're already on dessert. I sit down. They're having a turkey dinner. I grab, I have my turkey. I grab the gravy. I pour it on my turkey. I put it down. The guy across from me picks it up. It was his coffee. And nobody saw it, and I'm laughing my ass off. That was my first talk. Second talk that I ever did, and welcome to the world of speeches. I did a retirement nursing home, but was deceived by the patient who was a nurse. I just want you to come and speak to some of our patients. You'll really didn't tell me really where it was, and these people are basically on their last ditch effort out. So the one girl sat in front of me had Tourette's syndrome and was cursing at me constantly. The other side, the guy had like a spitting puppy. Everybody in the audience was in wheelchairs or on IVs. And I kid you not, somebody coded while I was talking. And the talk was on exercise. So we did finger exercises and turning our head as much as we could. And I struggled through it. But you know what? Perseverance always will lead you to success. 3 of the nurses there were so impressed that I made it through a talk. I don't think anybody ever made it through one. That they became my patients, and one of them is still my patient to this day. So that was my experience getting into it. Since then, I've had quite a few other experiences in business, and I know all of you have, and that's what makes you successful, and that's why you're still here, despite economy, despite family conditions, etc. If any of you have had these ridiculous suits against you, even though you're in the right, our lawyers here will tell you, you've got to fight them and you've got to defend yourself. We successfully made it through that. And this past year was very exciting for me because Blue Cross Blue Shield and Medicare did not pay me for 9 months, which makes up about 75% of my income. And it was very scary. We still haven't corrected like a quarter of that. And with the economy the way it was, etc., it was a really fun year. Prior to that, though, we had some other fun things, some of the personal challenges I've overcome. I had Lyme's disease. I had poison sumac to the point where I wore sunglasses. I got bit by a brown recluse spider, and I almost died from that about a year after that. 2 bouts of walking pneumonia. I was buried in an avalanche, and 2-year-long divorce that pretty much left me broke at the time. And amongst all this, I've never missed a day of scheduled practice. So I worked with walking pneumonia and all that stuff, but I don't know how smart that was. But the message is that I really believe, in what I do, and I have faith in that, things will always be okay. And the more you overcome these things, somebody said, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And I have to absolutely say that, as cliche as that is, we've all had experiences like that. And once again, I know some of my experiences seem trivial to some of the things we deal with, and we deal with our family members and sickness and loss of loved ones, etc. So I can laugh at these now, and I can make fun of them. And that's something I just share with you, is that whenever you're having trouble, look at where you've come. And you know what? You wouldn't be where you are now, and you wouldn't be who you are now unless you overcame those personal obstacles. Because that's what makes you. That's what gives us our substance. That's what gives us integrity. And it also humbles us and makes us respect other people. And those are some of the things I learned from that. I was fortunate enough to do a workshop with Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul. Everybody familiar with him? And he told me this personal story that before Chicken Soup for the Soul was ever published, he had sent out his resume and the concept of Chicken Soup for the Soul to over 100 different publishers. He was ready to give up. The 100th one actually said, this is a great idea. That book is now the 2nd most sold book, all his Chicken Soup for Souls, after the Bible in the world. So perseverance, not giving up, having that belief, having that faith is insurmountable. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because I want you to know that that mission and that purpose that I had from that first day when I got back, when that phone rang, to be committed to my patients, to get them well, is still with me today. And if you want to see a physician or somebody that's going to help you with their heart, soul, and head and hands, then I'm the guy for you.